This is a big day in North Iowa. Local voters have a chance to hear from several presidential candidates about a range of issues. Hillary Clinton spoke on gun control in Osage today. Mike Huckabee addressed veterans issues in Charles City. And in Mason City, Senator Marco Rubio stopped by to host a town hall event at the historic Park Inn. KIMT News 3's Emily Boster was there and has the story.
I'm here at the historic Park Inn in Mason City, where Florida Senator Marco Rubio is meeting with local voters to discuss what sets him apart from other presidential candidates.
When I'm president of the United States, we're going to do everything it takes to strengthen America. We're going to have the strongest military in the world, we're going to have the strongest intelligence agencies in the world, and we're going to have a real war on terror. We will find terrorists and kill them, or we will capture them alive and send them to Guantanamo.
With several candidates making stops in North Iowa on Tuesday, Clinton took the opportunity to address issues like affordable health care for all Americans.
I think we should build on the Affordable Care Act, not rip it up and start all over again.
At this time on Monday, we'll be telling you the latest caucus results. Until then, those looking for a strong finish in Iowa are pushing to get every possible person's support. On the Democratic side, it is shaping up to be a very tight race between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. In Mason City, voters got to meet a man who once was president and one who wants the job. That's where we'll begin with KIMT News 3's Megan Hoffman.
I give you Bernie Sanders. And emotional actress Susan Sarandon took the stage at Music Man Square Wednesday night to introduce friend and current Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders. The topic of the night for Sanders, money, money, money.
We do not represent Wall Street. We don't represent corporate America. We don't want their money.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz stopped by as part of a campaign stop.
Yes, Powerball ticket, what can I get you,
The look of surprise for those stopping at the Casey's in Manly is priceless.
Take the opportunity just to sit and visit with the men and women of Iowa, to give people the chance to look me in the eyes, to ask the hard questions, and to have a real conversation.
With this many candidates in our area, you can imagine security is a top priority. It isn't just the campaign's security teams or the Secret Service's responsibility, though. Often, parts of the job are passed along to local law enforcement. They don't get reimbursed for any overtime if the Secret Service is involved. It's only when the Secret Service is not part of the security detail that local agencies can then bill the candidates for any expenses.
We don't get any reimbursement from the Secret Service, but there are requirements that we've got to provide a safe environment, and we don't want to be the city where something happened with a candidate or a president because we got a little sloppy and want to save a couple of bucks. We want to make sure it goes well.
Well, all of the polling, political ads, and countless miles and hours spent in Iowa talking to voters all comes down to this. Less than 24 hours from right now, voters will finally have their say, and this whole race is going to change. We're going to be in the middle of all of the action, and we've got you covered from local polling locations as well as Ground Zero in Des Moines. In fact, KIMT News 3's Matt Bradley and Levi Ismail are there already with a look ahead to our on-the-ground coverage. Matt and Levi.
We are going to be camped out here just steps from the Iowa State Capitol through caucus night. This is called the Microsoft Media Center, and what this is essentially is the place to be, the central location where journalists from around the world have gathered to tell the story of the Iowa caucus. This will also be the place for the latest election results, as well as reaction from the parties and analysis, and Levi and I will be bringing it all to you.
Now, one thing that we note is that all of the candidates, obviously this is a competition for them, but tonight we're hearing that even political parties are working together to make sure that these caucuses go as planned and make sure that Iowa maintains their first in the nation status.
We are hand in hand with the Republican Party of Iowa on First in the Nation. We have been working with them for many months now on the app and to make sure that our reporting system is second to none. So we are, our goal is to make sure that the First in the Nation status remains in Iowa, and we are confident that we have a reporting system that will enable that.
It is the subject that's proving to be a dividing line among neighbors in North Iowa. A proposal by Prestige Farms to build a pork processing plant on the south end of Mason City and bring more than 1,000 jobs along with it. As the City Council gets ready to vote on a development agreement, opponents are stepping up their efforts. KIMT News 3's Casey Walsh shows us today's march against the project.
With only 2 days left until the last City Council vote for the proposed pork processing plant, those against it are making sure their voices are heard at least one more time.
This is to come out here and show, yes, your community is united against this decision, and we're not going to be quiet and just let it slide.
People from all over North Iowa joined together for a peaceful protest around town against Prestige Foods of Iowa's plan to build a pork processing plant in Mason City.
3 hours after the meeting began, there's still no vote tonight. Mason City leaders are set to take a final vote on a development with Prestige Foods to build a $240 million pork processing plant in southwestern Mason City. KIMT News 3's Matt Bradley is at tonight's meeting with an update. Matt?
Katie, that vote may be coming fairly soon. We're getting to near the end of the line of people who have lined up to speak out tonight. As anticipated, this has been a highly attended meeting. I am in the overflow area right now. About 40 people were here at the peak of the meeting, in addition to the 200 people in the main area. And they're all lining up because this is really the last chance to speak out in this type of open forum. The City Council is set to vote this evening on a development agreement with Prestige Food. They would offer financial incentives for this project. In exchange, Prestige would employ up to 1,700 people at a minimum wage of $13 an hour. And they'll send $1.4 million to Mason City schools. And they've also agreed to create no feedlots within 2.5 miles of Mason City and Clear Lake.
I don't feel that the decision represents the entire population, but this is a process.
After over 18 hours of total deliberation, a vote on the proposed Prestige Farms pork processing plant is made. We have that decision right now. Good morning, everybody. Glad you could join us on this Wednesday morning. It's May 4th, 2016. I'm Tyler Mickelson. You are watching Daybreak. 6 hours after the public began speaking out last night, the council members finally took a vote. Early this morning, many were outraged. Others were excited to hear that Mason City City Council voted to deny a development agreement with Prestige Foods by a vote of 3-3. That tie means it failed.
Given up my life for 2 months for this.
Leading up to the vote, emotions ran high.
My student came in one day. Mr. Lee, I know you're not the same teacher. Just want to know I'm behind you.
I think after 2 months of lack of sleep and passion, and people have talked to you and you listen. And there's no real venting, and it built up, I think.
Well, for the first time in weeks, the proposed Prestige Farms pork processing plant is not on the Mason City Council agenda tonight.
That is not stopping people from voicing their opinion on that facility and the possibility of it coming to town this evening. KIMT News 3's Brian Tavik was at tonight's meeting and is back now for us in the newsroom. Brian?
Matt, Katie, a tie vote at the last Mason City City Council meeting put an end to the Prestige Farms plant coming to town, at least for now. In hopes of getting a naysaying city council member to reconsider their vote, supporters of the plans are speaking after the meeting about why they believe the council members are making a mistake. Those who voted no have the power to put Prestige Farms back on the agenda and reconsider incentives package.
We are moving backwards. I urge the 3 councilmen who voted no to please reconsider your position.
Testimony is underway in a North Iowa murder trial, and today the first officer to respond to the scene took the stand. Ronald Rand is charged with first-degree murder in the December shooting death of his girlfriend. The defense says this shooting was accidental, and they want the charge reduced to manslaughter. KIMT News 3's Emily Boster takes us into the courtroom.
Ronald Rand couldn't help but shake his head at times during opening statements.
He pointed that gun at her head, and he pulled the trigger.
A video of Ronald Rand being interviewed after his girlfriend was shot and killed rang through the courtroom today.
Is this a gun that you had for a while? Yeah.
For over an hour and a half, the jury heard this.
Today, the defense rested its case after Ronald Rand took the stand. As KIMT News 3's Emily Boster tells us, today was like a scene out of court TV.
Ronald Rand testified today that he and Michelle Key were having a great weekend. They spent their days smoking marijuana and drinking beer. Then Sunday night came, the night Key was shot and killed with a sawed-off shotgun by Rand.
What's the next thing that you do remember?
It comes in little flashes. You know, I have a really hard time with memory.
But first, a North Iowa man accused of shooting and killing his girlfriend learns his fate today. Ronald Rand is found guilty of first-degree murder. KIMT News 3's Emily Boster is following this story and has his reaction.
In the matter of State of Iowa versus Ronald Lee Rand.
The courtroom was filled with emotions as the verdict came down.
Guilty of the crime of murder in the first degree.
Also tonight, the shock of the death of a popular Mason City City Council member is settling in. 34-year-old Alex Kewen died Friday. So far, law enforcement are not releasing more information than that. We've been speaking with family members who pass along these funeral arrangements. A visitation will be held Wednesday from 5 to 8 p.m. at Trinity Lutheran Church in Mason City. That's also where the funeral will be held on Thursday at 10 a.m. KIMT News 3's Stefante Randall shows us how some colleagues are remembering Alex.
I always knew Mason City would lose Alex prematurely. I figured he would move on to the legislature, whether at the state or national level. I think we're lucky to have him as long as we did.
It is election night in Mason City, and thousands of people cast a ballot hoping to have their voices heard. Tonight is a special election to fill the at-large seat left behind by the death of Alex Kewen. That, combined with recent controversies like the Prestige pork plant, weighed on voters' minds today and may have spurred tonight's relatively large turnout. Here are the results. Because nobody got a clear majority, the top two vote-getters now move on to a runoff in December. Those two will be Paul Adams and Andy O'Brien.
More than 3,000 voters came out to cast their ballots yesterday, and around 70% of them were for Adams. He will be filling the seat vacated by Alex Kewen and says he is excited about the results.
We're really just thrilled with the results, thrilled that so many people got out to vote again on a cold and windy day, and just couldn't be more pleased.
Good Thursday morning to you. We are still looking at rainfall starting off this Thursday. Looking at the skycast, that stationary boundary still on top of us, and this is the reason why we're seeing the slow-moving storms and also the widespread activity that we've been looking at for the past 24 hours.
Several homes in Decorah, Freeport, Spillville, and Fort Atkinson had to be evacuated today.
And continuing our team coverage tonight, we have KIMT News 3's Katie Hinker live in the newsroom with that situation. Katie.
Well, Matt and Amy, growing up in Fort Atkinson, it's an area I'm very familiar with. Everywhere I drove around today, though, you could see feet of standing water. I'm told Spillville actually saw up to 10 to 12 inches of rain last night, so I spoke with Mayor Mike Klimisch about how they're recovering.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. It's devastating. In 2008, we had the river crested at 19 feet. Today we broke that record. We were at 21 feet, so it's pretty bad.
First tonight, a month's worth of rain in just a few hours. That's what parts of our area saw overnight, and then they saw the floodwaters surrounding them.
It's been a difficult day of fighting floods throughout North Iowa, and in one case it was a deadly fight. Chickasaw County authorities say a man called for help around 4:30 this morning because his car was being swept away. His body was found around 1 this afternoon, just north of Lawlor. Several roads in Riceville were also closed today, as well as a campground.
And this is Lake Hendricks campsite in Riceville you're looking at here. As you can see, several inches of water have washed out much of the lower part of the campground, forcing it to close. Those who endured the storm from higher ground say it was a very scary situation.
We're going to head now to KIMT News 3's Brian Tabak. He is live and now in Mason City, just one of the many locations he's been checking on in North Iowa today. Brian.
Yeah, Matt, I'm on North Hampshire Street and 7th Street Northeast, where you can see behind me the intersection is completely covered in water. I'm actually standing at about 1 inch or 2 of it myself, and you can find high waters just like this all the way down the Avenue of the Saints and into Floyd County, where folks are gearing up for the worst.
An apartment complex in Mason City was evacuated today after Chesley Creek overflowed. You can see that here as police help those in need to safety. Now, officials say around 25 people from that complex have been displaced. They're seeking shelter at the Salvation Army as city leaders determine when they can return.
Flooding seems never ending for those across our viewing area. Evacuations were happening just 24 hours ago in parts of North Iowa.
A state of emergency has been issued in Floyd County. Those in Charles City are preparing just in case they're next. KIMT News 3's Emily Boster has a look at what they're facing.
I'm standing on a street in Charles City where traffic has been blocked off. Water is covering my feet at this point. Those living in this neighborhood, they're telling me they're just thankful 2008 may not repeat itself.
From rivers overflowing to the ground caving in to even businesses underwater, Albert Lee is feeling the impact of the storms, and now the county is asking for help.
We're basically asking for the state of Minnesota to come in and help us, and hopefully we can reach our thresholds and get some reimbursement really back for the county is what we're looking at.
Iowa Governor Terry Branstad has issued emergency disaster proclamations for 13 counties, and today the governor is getting a first-hand look at some of the damage. He was joined by Lieutenant Governor Kim Reynolds along with other state leaders to tour several North Iowa towns that have been hit hard by the flooding. That includes Shell Rock, which you see here.
Piles of tree debris, damaged household items, leftover sandbags, all being hauled away as communities get to work trying to get back to normal. KIMT News 3's Emily Boster is checking out how some students are tackling the aftermath of fall flooding.
A game plan is in place for several high school football players as they team up to clean up.
I was really excited. I have some friends from here. Obviously, we play them next week, so we really want them to be able to get their practice in, come out, help the community. I mean, North Iowa, we want to just help each other out because we know they do the same for us.
West Fork, Osage, and Riceville had their high school football teams spread throughout the town of Greene, picking up what they could as a way to get back.
It's good to help them out. They've been going through this for all last week, and they're all probably worn out and they need some help.
That's helped the players understand the toll Mother Nature can take on one's home, one's town. They start to understand that even though they'll be hitting each other on the football field, they have to help each other to reach this end zone.
Mason City's Alexis Redeker has won the limbo competition at Roller City roughly 50 times in a row. At this point, she strikes fear into the competition, not because of her winning streak, but because when you ask her how low she can go, the answer, about 6 to 7 inches. Alexis Redeker puts on her skates just like the rest of us. Loop, swoop, and pull, then Velcro. But it's what she does on the skates that's simply amazing.
Grab your legs, hold them tight, push your back under, turn your head.
Anytime we see something like this, we all wonder, can we do it? Do you have any advice?
Get low.
Okay, let's give this thing a try, see what happens. Why don't you go first, I'll follow your lead. See if this thing's actually as tough as it looks like. Well, yeah, that looks pretty easy. Yep, right there. Okay, did it. Can't stop.